Mission 2, start. Thank you. Shotgun.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and a continuing series on the Metal Slug franchise and how it evolved, and today we're taking a look at Undercover Cops, released by Irem in 1992. It is a beat-em-up game, and I didn't plan on covering this, but everyone asked me to, because it is related to the series, and I figured even though it's tangentially related, I figured I'd still give it a go. Before we get too far involved though, give me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But Undercover Cops is a decent beat-em-up. It's definitely not my favorite, but there's a lot to love here, and there's a lot related to the Metal Slug franchise. And I know we already talked about Gun Force 2 and In the Hunt. This is in 1992 Undercover Cops came out, so it predates both of those. But just think about this. Ocean, sand coming in from the water. Well, Metal Slug 3 does that as well. And you're going to see that there's a lot of similarities between Undercover Cops and the Metal Slug franchise, as well as some other Irem hits and some other weird things that just kind of made me think of other games. But right off the top, Irem was an awesome maker of games, and Undercover Cops is a good one. The only issue I have with this game is that it really stretches its runtime out pretty severely in spots, and I will talk about that in a little bit. But as far as what's on offer here, it's still an amazing beat-em-up with absolutely gorgeous graphics, especially for 1992, and all of those detailed backgrounds are just spectacular, but that's what you would come to expect from the developers that worked on Metal Slug. Graphics and backgrounds are going to be paramount to what they are doing, and I love all the different weapons you get in this game. We have this big concrete pillar right now, and it absolutely just destroys everything in front of it, but you can also just pick up a giant tuna and kill enemies with a one-shot. That is amazing. It reminds me of Yakuza, where you can swing a tuna at your enemies. Apparently tunas are just really powerful weapons, who would have known? But I love the backgrounds of this game as well, these hobos living out near the wharf. It's just so much fun. This game is incredible to look at in motion, and the soundtrack is exactly what you would expect from people that worked on the Metal Slug franchise. It's got all the trappings of being an excellent game. It just has a few flaws in it that really do drive me nuts. Bosses are quite cheap unless you learn their patterns, and this first boss here seems to have more health than some of the other bosses later in the game. I would say that just like Metal Slug, but more so like In the Hunt, this game just wants to steal your quarters. As you'll see there, I got thrown into an instant death situation. But look what happens when we beat this stage. Watch closely because it goes quickly, but you're going to see something come up. Mission 1 complete. And what does that remind you of? Metal Slug Mission Complete. It's basically the precursor version to what we would see in the Metal Slug franchise. This game, whole cloth, I don't want to say created things in Metal Slug, but it certainly inspired a lot of the developers that would go on to found Nazca, because they worked on this game too. And that is just so much fun to see how related these properties really are, because we've already talked about Gun Force 2, which is really Metal Slug 0.5. We've talked about In the Hunt, which is Metal Slug as a shmup. This is Metal Slug as a beat-em-up. Some may even say you need to slug it out amongst your opponents. That was a lame dad joke, and I'm not even a father. But I love this elevator section here, not because it makes me think of anything with Metal Slug, but it actually makes me think of another beat-em-up game that I'm going to be pulling up on the screen right now, and that is the elevator section in Splatterhouse 2. Hopping on one foot, elevators moving. I'm not saying they're inspired by one or the other, I'm just saying that it really makes me think I'm playing Splatterhouse 2 there for just a second. But this is still a really fun game, and it's a really fun examination to see how Metal Slug came to be, because so many of the Irem games have relationships to Metal Slug, and I just love this guy here. He looks like a flying, I don't even know what he is. He's got that gas mask on. It's creepy and it's funny at the same time. But as good as this game looks and as fun as it is to play, it sounds awesome. So listen for 45 seconds and I'll be right back. It's just an absolutely awesome soundtrack for what the game has on offer, and it sounds so similar to Metal Slug in spots. You can definitely tell that a lot of the inspiration for the Metal Slug music was taken whole cloth from Undercover Cops. I even love the intro screens here as they slide away from the screen, but here is where the relationship to Metal Slug it gets even deeper. I love these little moles that jump up and attack us, but what's really going to happen is there's going to be some people or things popping out of the ground, and what are those? Well, they look like some sort of hermit crab style enemy, not quite 100% crab-like, but close enough to remind me of something really similar. And again, going right back to Metal Slug 3, you're going to see, again, we need to fight crab enemies, and they come from the sand, and they explode into goo when you kill them. That is exactly what is happening in Undercover Cops here. Something comes from the sand, it looks kind of like a crab, you punch it, and it explodes into goo. A little bit more violent goo because it's blood, not green goo, in this instance it's purple, but you can 100% see exactly what's going on. But here's a little bit into where I say that this game is maybe not my favorite beat 'em up of all time, and that is just because it seems a little bit cheap. Some of the bosses just have your number. There are patterns where you can basically cheese them, but you need to be really lucky to get them into that pattern. More often than not, they're just going to be sitting there taking your life as much as they possibly can. And this game only has one button for attacks. Depending on how you move the stick, you might get something else out of it, but if you push, jump, and attack at the same time, you can use a special move like right there. And I basically just end up spamming that sometimes just to kill bosses because I'm not putting quarters in the machine, therefore I'm really not worried about how many quarters I'm spending. But if I was putting my own money into this game, it would cost a fortune to beat. But this is the level that I was mentioning earlier when I said that this game just kind of overstays its welcomes in certain spots and makes it artificially long. You get these motorcycle enemies coming in, and you can definitely just explode that motorcycle with her ass. That's just a thing that happens in the game, but that's not really what annoys me about this. You'll see here in real time that, it's going to be 20-30 seconds of these motorcycle enemies. The thing about this stage is it just keeps going on and on and on. And I'm going to speed the footage up here, but this is basically 3 minutes of motorcycles just coming at you from the left and the right, and you having to hit them. Some explode with one hit, some take like 5 or 6, and they'll be the same color. Even the color indications of what you're trying to face can be a little bit confusing. And it is just throwing every single motorcycle it can possibly think at you for like 2 or 3 minutes. And it just drags the game down. And even here, once we finally start getting regular enemies coming out, we are still dealing with motorcycles as well. It just makes the game feel like the developers are trying to extend the length compared to something like Metal Slug, where absolutely every minute of that game is showing you something new and you're really enjoying yourself when you play. And it's not just isolated to that one motorcycle area, it's also in here as well. It's just going to keep dropping more and more enemies at you and barely letting you progress. So you can see that a lot of this style of Metal Slug is in Undercover Cops, but the developers got a lot better as time went on once they got to Gunforce 2 or In the Hunt or obviously the Metal Slug franchise on, of doing a better job of pacing their games, because I think the pacing of all the Metal Slug games is excellent. I know some people think 3 might be a little bit too long, but I have no issues with it whatsoever. But you can definitely see that they weren't quite ready to get to that level of gaming with Undercover Cops, because maybe this game should take you 20 minutes to beat, but they were definitely padding it out to make it take longer. And hey, look on the ground there. There's an actual slug. It even has a slug in the game. I'm not sure if they were planning on making Metal Slug. I highly doubt it, but it's just a kind of fun nod to the franchise. But yeah, this is a bonus episode. I didn't really plan on covering Undercover Cops just because it's not a game that has like any sort of genre match to it. It's not a run and gun, and even though In the Hunt's more of a shmup, it still has that run and gun feel to it. But you guys asked for Undercover Cops, and I've tied it to the Metal Slug evolution. Short of that, if you have any questions, guys, leave them down below. Tell me if you've ever played Undercover Cops and what you think of it. This is going to be the final episode in the Metal Slug franchise series, I believe, unless I add something different. You never know. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. We have videos throughout the week. But yeah, this exists. Bye-bye.